So I'm going to give you kind of a general overview of the licensing component, and then I'll show you a few examples of existing clients that kind of answer some of the questions or requirements that you had in the document you sent that aren't generally covered in the general demo. So we'll start with just kind of an overview. This is CitizenServe. When you log in, when you see the CitizenServe logo up here, that means you're in the internal version, the one that you would use day to day. And I'm going to jump to here, the portal. This is the online portal that your applicants would see, or your business owners, if they were applying online or checking the status. So I'll kind of be jumping back and forth between the two on our demo. So just if you get kind of lost, feel free to let me know. But if you see this town of Buena Vista, that means we're on the portal. And if you see the CitizenServe logo, that means we're on the internal application. So let's start by going to the portal site, and we'll just apply for a license, and then we'll kind of track the workflow routing and the approval and all of that. So this is the portal, and you can configure all of this. You can load your own logo. You can change out pictures and text. Our demo portal is set up for all the components, so licensing, permitting, and code. But if you're not using those, you would just have a licensing section and load in the types of text that you want. I'm going to go in to learn more about licensing. All the pages on the portal are configurable, so you can change the text. You can turn options on or off. So if you wanted to have a "Do you need a license" page, you could either enable this or disable it if you don't want to have it. It's just a way to kind of provide information. If you've already got that on your general website, then you might just have the "Apply for a License," so you can go right to that option. So this is customizable. You can do a lot of different things with it. Let's just jump into applying for a license. So I'm going to go to Apply for a License, and people can log in if they're already registered on your website, or if not, they can go to Register Now and fill out their name and email and things like that to register. I'm going to go ahead and log in as someone that is already on our site, if I can remember the password. There we go. So it takes me to the Apply for a License page, and this will list all of your license types. So as part of your setup, we get all of your applications, and we set them up in the system and work with you to configure them. But this list will be just whatever you have. So if you have a business license or alcohol license or whatever the different types may be, that's what you'll see in this list. So once you select the list, you can have a subtype. And the subtypes are used for unique workflow routing. So they kind of categorize the type, but they also help determine who should review and look at this license. So in this example, which is modeled after Redmond, Washington, they have different routes. If it's a home-based business, it just has to go to certain people. If it's out of the city, then really nobody looks at it except for licensing staff. And if it's within the city limits, then everyone sort of looks at it. So you have different options based on what's going to make sense to your applicants and also what you want to do internally. I'll select Located within the city limits. And if you want to attach a submittal requirements document to each license subtype, you can. You don't have to, but if you do, then you'll see this text with a link, and if you click it, it'll open up a PDF or whatever kind of document you want to upload that just has information on that. So it's kind of like the last chance to tell them what they're going to need to apply. I'll just put in a business name. And this question is optional. This lets you, if you issue multiple types of licenses to the same business, then this is helpful tying them all together so they don't have to enter the duplicate information over and over. So if I have to get a business license and an alcohol license and an entertainment license, for example, I would say, yes, it's an additional license, and then I don't have to put in my address and all those common things. For now, I'll just say it's a new location. And let me plug in an address. Let's say 998 Karen. And I'm going to search to find the address. And, well, let me try a different one. I think I want a new city here. I can type today. Let's try that. So it searches the system, and if it finds a matching parcel in your parcel database, then it pulls in the property information and all the history tied to that. So in this example, I can just see the parcel number and the owner's name, but if you had other parcel-related data like zoning and council districts, things like that, those can come in and you see those internally as well. And from this point down, this is what we call custom fields, which means we can add and remove fields. And so when we're doing your setup, we get your license application, and that's where we start from. So these are just going to be all the questions that are on your application, and you can change these and remove them. You can have different types of file, custom fields, drop-downs, dates, things like that. If it's got a red line, it means it's required, and you determine which fields you want to be required, both internally and on the portal. So some fields you might want to make required if they're applying online, but if they send in a paper application, you may not want them required for your staff because they might have left it blank on the paper. So you can set those. I'll just start filling in some of these fields. You can have attachment files. So in this case, we've got a select a file for the UBI license. So I'll just hit select file, and let me go find a document. Let's see. I have some samples in here. Use that one. And I'll describe my business. You can also add what we call help text, which are these little icons. So if you have a field that you want to put additional information in, you can put it in the help text. It helps when you're designing these forms to try to keep these questions short. If they're really long, it wraps. It's hard to read. So this is helpful in giving you a quick description of what they're looking for, but if you want to provide more information, you can. You could also add links to other fields if it was a very complex thing. So I'll select a mailing contact, what year did I open business, and I'll just fill out some of these required fields. You can make fields dependent on other fields. So in this example, I selected a corporation, and it's asking me for different officers or owners. If I selected a sole proprietor, then it's just going to list one person. So based on what I select here, I can see different options as I go down the form. So here we just have some questions, and this was kind of an interesting thing that Redmond did. They found that when they were sending these reviews out to the different departments, they all were asked, each department had like, they need to know this and that and a set of questions, and they would end up emailing the applicant and asking them. So what they did is they asked all the departments to provide feedback on what information they would like the licensing department to collect, and then they just added these fields here so that it saves times in the reviews for those different departments. So these were just fields that each department wanted to know. I can fill out some of these. Will you have a change of use? If I select yes, and it gives me a field to describe the change of use. Fire wanted to know things like that. And then submittal documents. If you want them to attach like copies of their IDs or workman's comp, things like that, you can attach documents for that. So I'll select a driver's license. There's a picture for that. I'll select a state license. We'll take this one. And site plans is optional, but I'll plug something in here. Let's see if I can find a document. Let's try that one. And you can also save this for later. So if it's a big long form, lots of required fields, they can hit save for later, which will just put it up in their cart. And it doesn't get sent to you yet, so that you won't see it until they're done. But it goes in their cart so that they can come back later and fill it out. So if it's a long application, they can do that. So I'll pull this one back up and fill out the rest of it. So my reporting method, this again is modeled after Redmond, and they calculate fees based on the number of FTEs or number of hours. We can set your fees up however you do it. A lot of people do it on revenues, per unit, like let's say how many entertainment devices do you have, and we charge X dollars per device. So however you charge it, we can set the system up to do that. Let's say I've got 10 FTEs. And if you want to add a signature field, you can do that, where they have to come on and sign. So if I'm ready to submit, once I click this, if I've got any required fields, I think I left one blank up at the top, it'll tell me. So, oh, this is a required field. You say OK, it'll jump right back to that field so that you can fill it out. And now I'll come back down and try it again. So I'll click submit. So when you click submit, that's going to save the application. It's going to start the workflow process for whoever that should go to internally. and it'll allow the applicant to pay online. So if you're taking online payments, this is where they'll pay. It'll calculate your fees, and you have control here. A lot of times people just want to collect an application fee up front, and then license fees are due when it's approved. Some cities will collect the whole amount up front. Some cities won't collect anything up front. You can configure all of that. So ideally you want to collect, you don't want to collect more than you need to because you don't want to have to do refunds, which is why most cities will do the application fee up front because they know they're going to take that and they're not going to give it back, but they won't necessarily collect license fees until it's approved. So you can configure that. So let's jump over to the internal version of CitizenServe and see how you can deal with the application once it comes in. Any questions so far on the online application piece?
I just had one quick question. So let's say that we have like a change that we want to add something to that. Is that something that we will have like access to just do, or is that something that we would have to contact IT or someone else or the maintenance people?
So it's both. Oh, do you want to answer, Ray?
Yeah, go ahead. Give you a little break.
Okay.
So with CitizenServe, anything that you ever want to have done to the software, we can do that for you, and it's all included in your subscription. And that's anything configuration, if you need to have new permits added, if you want to change fees on permits, all those things are covered into your subscription. And our support center is really good about getting those things done quickly. So 80% of the requests that we get in any day are done that same day. Now that said, if you want to do those things yourself, you absolutely can do those. We'll train whoever you want to have to do those, and they can do those internally if you want. We've, for 14 years, we've had the same service model. So because we do so much of the service, we make it a lot of our, changes that we make to the software to make those changes easy because we're doing those. So it's really up to you, and you can do any kind of mix in between those. But basically anything that you'd ever want to have done to the software to keep it up the way that you want to is included in your subscription, and we'll do that, or we can train you guys to do it.
Okay, thanks.
Or you can do something in between.
Right.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And it's pretty easy to change. I can just show you really quick how easy it is. You just go, I'm back in CitizenServe. If I go to administration and I go to my department, business licensing, and I want to change that custom field, I'm going to pull up this business license. And these are the fields. So let's say I don't want to call it the CA State UBI. I want to call it the Arizona State UBI. I can just come in here and say, change it, hit save. And maybe I want to add another column too. I can add a field. Let's say I want to put in, I don't know, SSN or FEI, Federal ID. And save that. And as soon as I save it, it's real time. So if I come back here, I think I've got another license in one of my carts. Let's just pull it up. So as soon as you save it, it's there. So it's pretty easy to make changes. And like Ray said, some of our clients, they really take ownership of it and they want to control it and make changes. And some of them just submit support requests and we do it for them, whichever way works better for you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right, so let's take a look at how that application comes into you and how you're going to review it. So I'm going to jump back to CitizenServe and go to the home page by clicking the logo, or I could have clicked home here. It's going to show up on your task list. So it's showing up right here, application intake. That's the one I just plugged in. The workflow routing is customizable. You put in whatever departments you want. I'll show you a little bit of that. If you see an exclamation point next to it, it just means there's an alert on something related to this file. So it could be an alert on the property. It could be an alert on the contact. And if you click it, you'll see it. So you can add alerts to properties, to licenses, to people, and everyone kind of sees them as they go through the application when they're reviewing that file. So let's pull up my application intake. And I'm just going to click reviews first to show you the review route. So here's our business license review route. And these are the individual reviews on this license review. So we've got application intake going to Derek Christopher, and this is the only one that has a due date so far, which means this is the one that's on somebody's task list and they're going to do it. As soon as this one's done, it's going to go off to some of these other ones. And you can configure how this works. I think how I've got it set up is it goes here for the intake, and once the intake's done, it's going to go to planning and fire, but building doesn't want to see it till planning's done, so they won't get their task until this one's done. And then when everyone's done, it'll go off for the review complete to issue the license. So we'll work with you to determine what is your workflow process, which departments, what users, who needs to see it, and set that up in the system. Again, it's all configurable for admins. If you want to change it, you can. And in this one, this is a good example because the assigned to is blank. All the other ones have names. If you don't know who's going to do the review, let's say you have a department and they've got 5 different people in there and they kind of just do a round robin, or whoever's available grabs it, you can leave the blank, the assigned to blank, and it goes into an unassigned activity queue, and then that department can monitor their queue and pull things up. So you can either assign it to a specific person or just to a department in general. So let's go ahead and start out our review. We'll do the application intake. So this is typically like the first pass. Someone gets it, they look at it, they make sure it's complete, that all the information's there, and then once they've determined that it's a complete application, they'll send it off to all the other departments. So what you typically do in your review is you want to take a look at the application. So this is our license file. It assigns a file number. These different tabs let you view different information on the file. This is my review activity. So the first thing I want to do is look at my license. I'm just going to click this ... which is going to open up a new tab and show me the license. So I can go back and forth between those two while I do my review and look at it and go, okay, oh, they filled that out, they filled this out. Here's an example of a field that you could have that's a link to another website. So in this example, they have to verify the UBI is valid, it's valid business. So if I click the link, it's just going to open up a new tab and go to the Washington page where they can check to see if they're a valid license holder. So if you have any external websites that you have to visit to kind of check things, you can put links to those pages on your license application. So let's say there's some deficiencies with this application. I can go to my book icon, which is Common Comments, and it's going to pull a list, a checklist essentially, of things that might be issues with the application, or kind of your checklist of your intake. Okay, does it have an expired contractor's license? What are the different things? They provide a copy of their driver's license, all the things that might be wrong. So you can come in and say, okay, hey, this is expired and that's no good. I'll select those 2 comments, and it plugs them in down here. And if I wanted to change them, if this was just kind of boilerplate language and you had to change something, you can just type in there. Or if you had a unique situation that wasn't in your common checklist, you can just type in something unique here. So our first person's finished the retake, or the application intake, and they've got some issues. So they're going to change the status to resubmittal required, meaning we're not going to pass it off to the other departments until they give us this information. And we'll send them an email. So to send an email with these comments, I'm just going to come up here and click the email icon and select a template. We'll select the incomplete license application. You can have as many different email templates as you need. So if you're sending emails, canned emails to the applicant, you can set those up. If you have emails you send to different departments in relationship to the license, you can set those up as well. So I'll select that, and I'll select a recipient. I'll choose my applicant. And if I wanted, typically I would just send it. If you want to preview it, you can. I'll show you a preview just so you can see what it looks like, but normally you just hit send. So it essentially just pulls in the information from the license and those checklist items that I set up. And you can configure this template to look however you want. I'll go ahead and hit send. That's going to send the email, which just popped up in my inbox. Again, it just looks like the template. And it also saved a copy of that on the Documents tab, so you have a record of what was sent to whom and when. So that's that first application review process. Do you have any questions on that?
This is Elizabeth. I have a question.
Go ahead.
In terms of the workflow, so what you were demonstrating, as far as I understood it, was like more of a sequential workflow. Is there an option, so if multiple people are reviewing the application at the same time, is that possible? And then how does that work with, you were showing how you could change the status of the application, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. It does work. Let me show you. So let's pull up this one. And let's say I'm going to go back to my application review, and I'm going to say everything's good from this person's perspective. So they said, okay, that's good. I'm going to save it. And what it did now is it assigned it to these 2 departments. So you could have said, send it to everybody. As soon as we get it, send it to everybody if you want. Or you can have kind of a combination. Fire doesn't want to see it until building is done. So you can configure how, whatever workflow route you need, that's how you set it up. So it can go to one person, it can go to multiple people, it can go to some people after other people are done with it. And then this is the task list that you'll see. So if you're looking at this, you can see if it's got a completion date, it means they're done. If it's got a due date but no completion date, it means it's on their to-do list, they're working on it. And if it has no due date, it means it hasn't gone to that person yet.
Okay,
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right, awesome. So let's say now Planning and Zoning is going to pull it up and do their review. They're going to do basically the same thing. The biggest difference will be is they'll have a different set of comments. So if I look at their comments, they're going to see a different set of comments based on what they do in their review. They can also mark up documents. So if you're getting plans for anything, I don't know if you guys get any kind of like, oh, you have to show us how many parking spaces you have, and we have to make sure that's within, the zoning requirements, things like that. You can attach those plans and have comments on them. So I'll just show you that. To do that, you click the Markup Documents icon here. And let's say I want to do the site plans. I'll just click this one. It's going to pull the document up. You can look at it, and then people can start marking things up on it. So let's say I want to put a receive stamp on there. I can just drop my receive stamp. Let's say they don't have enough handicap spots. I can just, maybe draw an arrow to this, and I can add comments. Let's say I want to look at, it's not the right zone, and, maybe your parking spaces are off. So you can put different controls and different shapes, and everyone can mark up the same documents, and then you can send the applicant these comments if you want. I'll just draw a couple more shapes just for good measure. We'll put another couple of comments on here. Let's say that one. And I'll save it. So those comments that you make on the document get tied into your review activity. So you don't have to go to the comment, or you don't have to go to the document to see the comments. You can see them from the Reviews tab. So let's say the zoning is going to say it's approved with conditions. I'll plug in today's date and save it. So now when we look at our review tasks, we can say, okay, licensing has done their part, planning and zoning is done with their part, now we're waiting on fire and building. And they can do the same thing, plug in their comment, same basic information. Does that part make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So let's say I'm the applicant, and I'm wondering, where's my license? Why hasn't it been issued yet? Because I just applied yesterday, and I want my license today. They can log into the portal and go to their account and click View My Requests. And this is a test account, so we have all kinds of things in here, but I'll look at my licenses. Here's my application. I'm going to pull it up. They can see basic information. They can see the license application that they filled out. They can upload additional documents. They can leave you a message. If they want to say, hey, why isn't this ready, or where is it at? They can leave you messages. They can also go to the Reviews tab and see where it's at. Oh, I'm still waiting for building and fire, but licensing and application intake are done. And if they want to look at the comments, they can click here, and they'll see those same comments that they were emailed. And they can also look at the documents to see if there's any comments on the documents. So if I go, oh, what do they say about my site plans? They can pull this up, and they'll see those comments. They can't change anything, but they can look at all the comments that are on there. And they can print it out if they want. So that's how they can kind of look and check the status on their own without having to call and ask questions all the time.
And there's a lot of configuration options there about what you want them to see and not see. So it doesn't have to be exactly like that. There's a lot of different ways we can configure what they see and how they interact with you.
And so I noticed that you said that they can also upload documents. So let's say they were required to make an amendment or something like that to an actual document. They could then submit it here, and we would get it?
Yeah, it's going to go to, so you can set up that configuration so that it goes to maybe one person in the department, or it goes to whoever's assigned to the project or the application. But yeah, they can come in here and say, oh, I want to upload some documents, and go attach them, and then it'll go to whoever it's supposed to go to, whoever you've configured the system to go to. Same thing with the message. If they said, let me go back. If they say, I want to go back to, I want to leave a message, and they can type something in. That's going to go to whoever you configure. So some people say, we want all of these things to go through one person, and they're going to filter it. Or you could say, you know, Bob's been assigned to review and approve this license, so let's send them to Bob.
Do you have an option for like a general like queue or box?
You can put it in the unassigned activity queue. What that does, let me just copy this so that I can come back to it later. I'm just going to do a quick search for it. So if I go to the home page, there's an unassigned activity queue. So things that everyone's going to work just as they have time, you'll put that in there rather than assigning it to a specific person. And if there were any in there, you could click it and see them, but I don't have any in there.
Okay, and then if they pick it up from there, does it then register that it's them working on it, or do they have to put their name on it, or how does that work?
They can put their name on it. Let's just make one unassigned. Let's do this one. You know, I'm just going to add an activity just to show you. Let's say application intake, unassigned, due date today. Let's go back. Let's say we're going to start today and do there. So here's your unassigned activity queue. You can pull it up. You can just check it and then hit save. So let's say there were 10 on there, and you said, oh, I'm going to take this one and this one and this one and hit save, and then that'll push them to your list. Or you can just click it and go take care of it and save it. Or you can have some people say, all right, you know, one person's going to go in there and they're going to pick, so they can go down and select a specific person. So if you have one person in charge of kind of taking those on and assigning them to people, you can do it that way, or people can just pick off of the list.
Okay.
So I have a question. You had mentioned the unassigned activity queue earlier. Are these different queues? Because, like, let's say within a particular workflow, it needs to go to, like, a particular department only, but then this is going to maybe somebody else in a different department.
They're by department. So in your user settings, you have options to which departments can you see. So they go to that department, and then, like, some people might have access to both departments. Usually it's not. Usually it's by department, but you can set it up across department if you want to.
So they would see, so somebody who had access to multiple departments would see all the unassigned activities for all the departments, or do they have to go to separate queues?
They would see them all on one queue.
Okay, thank you.
And I think you can filter by that. Yeah. So if I had access to all the departments, I could say, oh, I just want to see what we're waiting on fire for, which is a good way to kind of see, you know, what are we waiting on? You know, where is it at? Why haven't you done anything with this? I'll send you an email, that kind of thing. You can also look at them on a map. That's more applicable to, like, inspections and things like that, if you want to see where they're at physically to decide where they go. But if you're maybe assigning reviewers based on districts or something, then the map is helpful in that way.
Thanks.
Sure. So let's go back to that license. And this is the quick search. So if you know the license number, the company address, there's some other fields you can change. You can have up to 3 up here. This is like, I know exactly what I'm looking for. I want to get to it. If you need more options, you can go to search for a file, where you can search on all different kinds of things. The name, the type, when it came in, status, things like that, just a street name. So this lets you search on lots of options, where the quick search is kind of a, I know exactly what I'm looking for. So let's pull this license back up and go to, oh, that's the wrong one. Let's see, what was I? I'm going to go look at my recent files. I don't remember which it was. Here it is, Julie Test Business. So I'm going to pull this up. And let's go back to the reviews and see where we're at. So we're waiting for fire and building to finish theirs. Let's just go in. I have access to change all of these. Normally you don't. It's only people in that department could edit those tasks, but you can set it up either way. And let's say also that building has done their portion also. So now when I look at the reviews tab, you can see all the different departments have gone through it. It's back to the original person in our licensing department telling them that everyone's completed their review. You can now go ahead and issue the license. So when I'm ready to issue the license, I can just pull up the license and change the status to approved or issued. and then we'll generate the license document. You can have it automatically set the issue and expiration date. So if it's a calendar year from when they were approved, you can just set it up for a calendar year. Or if you issue your license on an annual basis, let's say they all expire December 31st, you can set it up that way as well. So I'm going to generate the license document. So I'll click this and select a document to generate. We'll say the business license certificate. Click Generate Letter. You can set up warnings. So in this example, there's a balance due. Are you sure you want to issue the license? So you can set up warnings when you generate these, and they can be warnings that'll still let you proceed, like this one, or they can stop you so you cannot issue a license if this condition is true. And you can set them up on basically any data that's entered in the system. So I'll say, yes, I want to go ahead and do that. It's going to generate my license document and pulls it up. This is just a form letter. You can make it look however you want. If I look at this in print mode, let's take off my headers and footers. And I think this was set up to go landscape. So you can make them look however you want. I'll hit save here. That's going to save a copy of it. The applicant can also go online and now get that copy. So some people, if you want to control how they look, then most people who want to control how they look, if you have to hang them up in your site of business, then they'll physically print them and mail them. If you're not that concerned with how they look, then people let them download it online and print it. Sometimes people don't like people printing it themselves because they'll, it might not print it right. They might print it over 2 pages. You just can't have as much control over how it looks. So that's kind of a process question. So that's how they apply, how we do reviews, and how we issue the license. Does that make sense? Any questions on that?
Yeah, I have one question about the department review. So when they're in the system, do they see everything that, like we're the repository of the application? Are we able to restrict what they see, or do they see everything, the other departments?
They see everything on the license. So if you give them access to see the license, they can see everything on the license. They can't change it unless you give them rights to edit. If you have certain fields that you don't want them to see, they can see. I'm trying to think, how would you do that? Right now they can see everything. So if you had
like other licenses, so would they only have access to see that one, or can they search for like other licenses in the database?
You can do it either way. So if you say they're allowed to search for any license, you can set that up. If you say they're only allowed to see licenses that they have access to review, then you can do that as well.
Okay.
Any other questions on the license review and issuing process? All right. You guys, do you do inspections like license inspections?
Yeah, I mean, our departments do during the application process sometimes.
Okay. So you can track inspections as well. So if you're doing, systematic inspections where maybe you go out every year, you can do that. If that's something that you wanted to track within the system, you can. A lot of times if it's an outside department, they're tracking it in their own systems. So it kind of just depends on how you want to handle that. But you can track inspections through the system also. Let's take a look at I want to show you the map. I didn't show you the map part. So let's pull up a map. You know what, I want to go to a different file. Let's just grab this one maybe. Okay. So the system integrates, we use Google Maps. So when you can view any file on a map, you can view reports on a map, and you can load layers from your GIS system on a map also. So if I said, I want to see the parcel lines, it'll just show those layers on there. I don't have very good examples on this one, but I'll show you another installation that has lots of different layers that you can see. So it's helpful if you want to see council districts, or you want to see zoning is good because you can't build a garage in a residential area, that kind of thing. So all of those layers are part of your setup. We just get them from your GIS system and load them into the system, and you see them as soon as you click it. So let's look at renewal notices. So I'm going to go to reports. Renewal notices are set up under reports, and they're basically a mail merge, essentially. So you can set them up as a letter or as an email. So I'm going to do the letter one first. And depending on how your licenses expire, if they're on an annual basis, then you typically run this once a year, and you say what's the year of the expiration. If it's a year from when they apply, then you're typically running this once a month to get all the businesses that are expiring in that month, or 2 months forward if you're sending them out early. So I'm just going to run it for the year. If I check preview, it lets me look at the letter, see what's on there, but it doesn't save it or do anything. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it on preview and hit run. And so this just, I'll show you print so you can see what it looks like on a page. Let's go to portrait. And it's essentially just printing out one page for every business. So this is just a sample. You can make this look however you want. A lot of people do kind of a combo form, like this is a combo form. They're saying, okay, if you want to send us in paper, you know, fill out this form, fill out your fees, tell us any changes, or you can just go online and do all of this. So just depending on how you want to handle it, if you want to try to push most to online, then you emphasize that more. If if you feel like you're going to get a lot of paper, then you keep some paper instructions as well. So you can print these and mail them. You can also email them. So if I look at the email batch, let's just go pull up back to reports, and I'll pull up my email. The email looks different, but I'll show you. Again, I'm going to leave preview on there. Same thing, just a different template. We assume if they have email that they're going online, and we don't need to give them all this information. We really just want to give them a link to go click. And then they can go online, and you can control in the admin side of things, you can control which fields are visible on renewal and which ones aren't. So if you say, okay, let me pull up one of my licenses. When they renew, we don't need to ask them all this information again. We already know it. We don't need to ask who the owner is unless, of course, it's changing. We can just go right down to say, attach your workman's comp forms and tell us your revenues. So you can control what fields they're going to see on the renewal process. And then once that renewal comes in, if it's if really they just have to pay to renew, then you can just have a batch process that generates certificates for everyone who paid. If you're doing a review on everyone that comes in, then you'd have another workflow route to go in and get those, have them assigned to different people to do the review. Does the renewal part make sense? Any questions on that?
Yeah, so, and you said that we would go in, for example, and just run the report as needed. Is there, as part of the system, will it notify you which ones are coming up due or anything like that? Or
you could have a metric for that. So let's see, what metrics do I have here? You could have you can set up different types of metrics on basically anything in the system. So you could have, renewals due, and maybe like a this month, next month, last month, kind of an option in here to show you. So whoever's in charge of running those, when they log in every day, they'll say, oh, there's 3 for this month, I should run renewals. Does that make sense?
yes, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions in general?
I have one question. So there are some renewals that we have that are just the payment of a fee.
Uh-huh.
And so would that use the same process essentially? Pretty much, other than like it could be run and then basically persons would get an email to go online and pay or something like that?
Yeah, so they get a notification to go online and pay, and then they'd pay it, and then it would just get renewed. If you have to kind of determine your rules around, okay, this license type, all it requires is a payment. This license type, we have to check their insurance, so we won't issue it until a person looks at it, things like that.
Okay. And for the ones that just require payment only, are there notifications that someone can set up that just go out, like with a date or something like that?
You have to run a process. There's nothing that just goes out without something happening, data changing in the system, something like that. So it'd be a report that, someone would run however often, quarterly, monthly, whatever. Now, if you have, like, in your requirements document, you mentioned the vending machines, I think it was, that they pay monthly. They have to submit a report monthly. So for things like that, if the onus is on the owner to go in and submit these reports every month, you can set up what we call excise tax, and then they can just go in and submit their reports every month. And then in that case, all you're doing is tracking the deficiencies, who didn't send in their report. And it's less like a renewal, where a renewal you're kind of driving it, hey, it's time for renewal. So you can take either approach.
And what if, so what if it is up to them to pay, for example, and the result of them paying is the issuance of a license certificate? But that's all that's required. So they basically have to go in and pay, let's say, quarterly and get a quarterly certificate. Does someone have to physically, like, run those certificates, or like how does the system know, like does the system issue certificates based on like?
You can have, there's automated notifications. So let me go into email templates. So your payment has been received. There's an email template for that, and you can go in and change it. So what we would do is we would set this up as a custom one, and then we'd have logic built into the form letter. This is something that our team would have to do, that says if the license meets these conditions, then this template should look like a certificate. So essentially, as soon as they pay, it would run this process to go, okay, is it a self-certify or a auto renewal, and then have the template pull just the information to make it look like a certificate. And then you wouldn't have to touch it at all. You would just really be monitoring the deficiencies, who didn't send in a report, or who didn't pay, or things like that, who partial paid.
So that's programmed, basically, like a program.
Yeah, it's part of your setup. Those custom processes aren't something you can configure. It's something that we set up for you and change, but there's no cost to that. That's part of your setup. It's part of your ongoing support. So if you said, oh, we want to change that, our team does that for you.
Okay.
So let's look at a couple of examples of other clients that had some of the things that you mentioned on your requirements that I could just show you. So this is Somerville, Mass, near Boston, and they have something that's recommendations to council. They call it Board of Aldermen. But I'm just going to go into John's reports here, and he's got this board packet for public, PEL is public event licenses, which is just another type of license for him. So you can plug in a board meeting date and hit run, and it defines all of the licenses that are scheduled to be heard that day. And it's just pulling in basic information. So there's like a separate page for each license that's scheduled to be heard. So you can set up reports that will pull in information. So let's say you had a field on the license that was recommendations to council. Then you would just print that field in this template. And it doesn't have to be a form letter. It could be more of a list, if that makes sense. You can kind of make this look however you want. I'll show you in print preview. They just wanted one page for every line item, essentially, that's being held for the Board of Aldermen meeting. So that's an example of how you can have the data pull out of the system to create council reports. One of the other things I wanted to show you that they had was the certificate, just different formatting for the license certificate. Let me go into AL. So here's just another example of how you could make the certificates look. Again, you're going to tell us how you want it to look, and we're going to set it up like that. But this is just an example of how you could do it. I'm going to print. So this has got like a border, and he's printing different information based on what they selected.
So we also issue ID cards, like plastic ID cards that are like the size of a driver's license, for example.
You can do that. Let me show you. I have another client who's doing that.
And they have a photo, like a photo of the person.
Yep. This is Compton, California, and they have vending operator licenses, or what they call them. So just a different type of a document. I'm going to go select the operator permit card, generate, and it looks like an ID card. So all you have to do for these to work is you have to have an ID card printer. So like if you want to print on an actual physical card, you just need a printer that prints to that. And as long as it can print from Windows, or you don't need a proprietary program to print to it, which most don't do that anymore, then you can print those.
Okay.
Let's look at one other thing I wanted to show you under John. Is a report to kind of show one of the items on your list was we want to see businesses in the area or something like that. Let's go here. Where's that report? Let's see if I can find it. He has a lot of reports. Businesses near a location. So you can say, okay, find all the licenses that are in a 1 mile radius of this license, and I'll run it. And it's going to pull up the map, and it's showing all the businesses in that radius. You can also, while you're here, look at the zoning, because it looks, when you look at it, it doesn't really look like a mile. Why is there no businesses in some of these areas? If you come and say, okay, show me the zoning districts, then you can understand why that is. All this yellow is residential, so there's not going to be a lot of businesses. Those are probably home businesses. So you can view different layers on the reports while you're looking at those licenses. And if you click one, you can see, well, what is this? This is a used car dealer. What's this one over here? This is a garage. So you can view different information. You can drill down on those if you wanted to by clicking that. And they have lots of layers, which is kind of cool. Let's say I want to look at the wards, which are like our council districts. It'll just draw a line with all the different wards. Oh, this one's in so-and-so's district. He's going to want to know about that. So you can use these layers through reports or through the system if you want to just view them. You don't have to be in a report. So that's an example of that. And I think those were all the examples kind of things outside my first demo or what we looked at initially. Any questions, comments? What are you guys thinking?
For those reports that you were showing, are we able to create our own?
You can create your own, or we can do it for you. Let's go look at reports. So,
while you're going over there, Julie, and also, any of the reports that you want to have created, you can also put on the portal. So let's say that report that Julie was just looking at, that you wanted, your citizens or business owners to have access to that report self-service. Those can go out on the portal too, and they run that report basically the same way that you would.
Yeah, okay. That's a good example. So here, back on the portal, there's a report section. So you can say, oh, show us restaurant complaints. This is our test site. I never know what I'm going to get. We'll put in a big date range and see if we can get anything to come back. So let's see. Oh, look at, we've got lots of rodent issues and some tobacco issues. So depending on kind of what information you want to make public, inspections are a big thing people want to know. I want to see all the restaurants that didn't pass their inspection, things like that. Any report you can create, you can plug on the portal. Let's see what other reports were on there. You could do a map report. Again, it's in a big date range. So that you can show your constituents. We use the same address all the time, so there's no markers. But you can show them, all the licenses within an area. You could use that radius thing. So if you said, oh, let the applicant plug in their address and see all the businesses in their location in a mile radius or a 2 mile radius, you could use that report for something like this as well. So creating reports, there's lots of standard reports that come with the system. You can create your own. We can create them for you. I think we probably create, 70% of the reports. Some people really get into making their own, and some people say, hey, I just want this, and we'll do it for them. So either way works. There's no cost for reports. They're usually done on the same day. If it's urgent, you mark it urgent, and you'll hear from us usually within 15 minutes, but contractually within an hour. So we are on support. If you call our customers, that's what they're going to tell you. Our support is phenomenal. But if you want to create your own report, you can just come in here, and let's say I want to make a new report. And let's say I just want a simple list. And I want to report on licenses. So I'm going to choose the field. So let's say I want the license number, the type, the subtype, the business name, and the application date. Maybe I want everything in a certain date range. So I can say, let's get everything where the application date is greater than January of this year, and the application date is less than Let's say everything that came in before July 1st. If you want to add totals, so let's say we also want to put some money on there, total license fees. I want to know, I want to subtotal by subtype. So we'll go ahead and run our report. Oh, somebody messed these up on test. Let's do it in production. Reports, my new report. Again, I'm going to make it a list on licenses. I want to see license number, license type, business name, application date, and total license fees. These are the fields that are available, and these are the ones that I want to add. And my criteria, application date is greater than 1/1/17, and application date is less than 7/1. And I'll go ahead and run it. Let's put in a bigger date range.
And so, like as Julie's talking about support and the reports and the configuration changes. Also, let's say that we started to run on reports for you, and you said, I want to do this myself. I need a little primer on how to use that report writer. All the training is also included in your support. So any training that anyone would ever need, all you have to do is request that, and we'll do a training session for them. And there's never a cost for that either.
So here's my simple report. Again, you can add fields, remove fields. You could print them. You can export any report to Excel. You can set up chart reports. I think there was a saved map report. Let's look at this one.
And if you notice too, when Julie went back to the report, she put a specific date range in, but when you run it again, you can pick another date range just at runtime.
Yeah, you can change those. You can create charts and graphs. Let's see, files by type. Let's just see what comes up in here. So you can do charts and pie charts and graphs. So the reports are really, you can report on any data in the system. You're going to be able to create, or the typical user is going to be able to create a fair amount of the reports they want. List views, charts, graphs. What they won't be able to do is if you're doing something, let's see if I can find some examples of people who have some crazy reports. He's got some lean reports that are pretty complicated. They have updating logic. So they check all these unique criteria. It's got to be this and that and this and that. So these very complex reports, our staff will typically set those up. And again, they're quick and you can change them and there's no cost for that.
The people that do support for us are the same people that do the implementation, so they don't, it's not like a triage group that it goes to someone else and they have to give them information and they have to do it. And so we rotate the same people that do implementations through support, so they're current, they know exactly what to do, they have this the skills to do it right away.
Any other questions, comments?
Not for me.
No, I'm good.
Right. So I guess it's just a couple things I'd kind of just so everything that we do is all browser based, as you noticed. That's a lot of HTML that we use. So there's never it'll work on any device, any browser. So you can use this at home. You can use it in the office. You can use it on your laptop out in the field. You can use it on your device out in the field. It's all HTML5 responsive design. So it's going to have it'll look and feel differently on a device with different real estate and different calendar widgets and stuff like that. But it's all very homogeneous, same app, no matter where you use it, which is kind of nice. And
so if I'm an example of that, if I'm on an iPhone, the screen changes. So if your applicants are applying from a phone, they can apply just like they can online. They're not going to have to do all this. It's responsive.
Right. They don't have to download an app from any store or anything like that, just the browser. And we've been, for 14 years, been in business 14 years. All 14 years, we've been a web-based software as a service, full support model. So we haven't bought other companies, enrolled their products in, and have, or we didn't port this from the AS400 and everything's always been web-based. All the configuration components are something that we've always, so there's a lot of longevity in our model and in our technology and how we, what we do. Obviously, we change it over time, but you don't have to worry about updates to the software. I mean, we handle those for you. We normally do those, once or twice a month. They happen at night, so you never get behind in a version of the software. We don't charge for new versions of the software, new features of the software. It's like when we added the document markup tool that you saw, that was just included, no additional charges for that or, modules. And you don't get to a place where, you're on the Blueboot version of the software and now we're moving into the Cardinal version. And if you want to get on the Cardinal version, then you got to pay more money. We do not work that way. Don't work that way with our customers. You would just get that new version of the software always. So you always have access to our new stuff.
So, sorry, this is Elizabeth. I said I was good, but I have a question. Migration of data, of licensing data from other systems. Can you talk about your experience with that and, any kind of estimate of time frames for that part of your process?
Sure.
So normally
we do. Oh, you want to take it, Ray?
Please.
We do data migrations all the time. That's everyone wants. You just can't, especially licensing. You can't go live on a licensing system without all your licenses. So we import and migrate data all the time. The way that we do it is we get a copy of your database. We write a migration script to pull it in. We pull it into a test site, and then we let you review it and check it and make sure you're happy with it. We make any changes that we need to, and we kind of do that process a few times until you're good with it. Once you're good with it, we'll delete all the test data, and when you're ready to go live, we'll just do one final migration to pull in all of the current licenses. And the timing, it doesn't take too long. We don't typically do it until we're done with your setup because we can't import data until we have the system in place to import the data to. So it's one of the last things that we do. It usually takes maybe a month to do it if it's just one system. More complex systems where we're pulling data from one source for licensing and another source for code, another source for permitting, those can take more time. But typically, 2 weeks to 30 days is about all it takes to migrate the data, as long as you've got availability on your side to review it to help us. So we'll typically ask for screen prints, give me a screen print of this license and everything that's tied to it so that we can do our mapping. And then once we've got it in there for you to review it and kind of cross-check it, we can set up reports, which is a good way to cross-check it. If you have a report in your current system that maybe shows all renewals in a time frame, we'll set up a similar report in CitizenServe so that you run them both, make sure they match. Things like that help in that validation process.
And we can also,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to add one little thing to that. Sorry to interrupt you. We can also add any number of custom fields. So we can always make a home for converted data, so you don't have to shoehorn it into how you're going to do things going forward. But if there's something that you want us to, it's applicable how you used to do things, and you want to continue that type of report in the system, but for whatever reason you decide that that's not really applicable on what you want to do going forward, we can create any number of custom fields at the conversion also to put that information in, so you don't have to kind of shoehorn it into places that it doesn't necessarily belong.
So we are currently using a product called Tax Mantra that was developed by Tata Consultancy Services. Do you, by any chance, have experience with any clients moving from that system?
Do you know what database it's on? So I don't think we have any experience with that specific. But really, all we ever really need is just a backup of whatever database, if it's an Oracle database or a SQL database, whatever the normal production backups would be. That's really all that we need. And we've done, we do conversions from AS400s, we do conversions from COBOL, we do conversions from all kinds of different systems. So we have all the things available to us, based on what it is. But normally, all we normally need is just the database.
We typically, a lot of times, we don't have any help from anyone with that data. So it's a legacy system. No one knows how it works anymore. You're getting rid of it for a reason. There's no one to help identify where the columns are. So this is what our team does all the time. We just jump in the data, we start looking at it, and we figure out what's what and where it goes. And that's why we'll ask you for screen prints, because sometimes when we look at the data, the column names will be like column 3, column ABC. There'll be no relationship to won't be issue date. It'll be column A. And so we look at the screen prints and we match things up so that we can do that mapping. So it's just something that comes with, probably 80% of the implementations we do. People need their data in the system or it's useless. So we have a lot of experience with data migrations.
We fixed, so, if you could get us at whatever point you wanted to know what that was going to be, if you can just get us a copy of that database, we'll look at it, we'll give you a fixed cost for it.
How long does it usually take for the whole thing, for the whole process, not just the migration, but just to get someone up and running?
So I just say,
go ahead.
I'll give just a little bit of overview on the implementation process, Julie, and you can kind of be more specific. But just as kind of Julie spoke a little bit about, the kind of the iterative piece during conversion, our implementation services are, really, we don't start with a scope because we're never done with your implementation, so we're not going to scope it to this number of reports or these specific permits and say that's all. And if you want more than that, it's going to be more. But the way that we work is it's very iterative where, we'll configure the system. You guys will come into a what we call a weekly walkthrough meeting. You'll see the work that we've done. You'll say, hey, I like that, or if we're going to do it that way and that makes sense, can we also get a report here, or let's change that field type, so to, do a drop down with these specific values in it, and then we'll go and make those changes during the week, and then during the week you also have the chance to log on and actually, play with the system, and let's say you look good during the meeting, but after you did a couple of them, you're like, man, it would be better to do it this way. We'll make those, then you just bring that feedback to the next meeting. We just kind of keep iterating through the process until it's, the way that you want to. And you can really decide, anywhere along the way, you may start off by thinking, we want to get everything before we go live, but then you may say, you know what, let's just go live with these two. That's great with us too. These two types of licenses or whatever that looks like. And so, there's a lot of variability in that. Sometimes we've gone through implementations where, halfway through, council decides to change the permits and we have to, start over again. That's okay for us. It's just, we're not going to, put change order to your project or anything like that. So that's kind of how we work on the implementations. It's very, like I said, very hands-on. Where we do, you see, you get hands-on, we make changes, and we just keep that iterative process going until the software is at whatever point you want to take it live, and then we'll keep going, even after that. So Julie, you can get some better ideas on. Yeah.
It also depends on your time frame. So if you tell us we have to be live on this date, we're going to be live on that date. If your schedule is more flexible and you don't have strict guidelines, then it'll probably take longer because we'll go slower, we'll be more thorough, we'll spend more time on everything. So it really depends on, what your objectives are and also your availability. So you have an active role in the setup. You review things, you provide feedback, you answer questions. So if your staff is highly available, we're going to move much faster than if your staff's not highly available and we're waiting for questions and things like that. So it's just it's a lot of variables. I've seen some be live in 30 days. I've seen some in 3 months. I've seen some in a year. It just depends on a lot of factors, but primarily your goal. If you want to hurry, we'll go fast. If you want to go slow, we'll go slow.
Okay.
And also just want to, if, based on, I know where you guys are on the purchase side, but we do have reseller agreements with several different vendors like SHI and Insight and Dell. If that's a good path for you guys to go down, that's something that we have available to us too. If there's any state contracts or anything like that, that they're a part of already.